All right, welcome everybody. I am glad to have you today, True Wealth Investors Podcast. We are joined by Kurt Phillips, and you may have heard him on the podcast many other times. He was on, I think you were one of our first guests, you and your wife Elizabeth, sharing your story in real estate. And Kurt and I are co-facilitators of the Elevate Mastermind Group. So we meet weekly, and usually we're really focused on real estate and things of that on that topic. But today we have Kurt here as a guest to share about really his successes, which I'm going to let him share them because they are so beyond what I can really comprehend in health and fitness goals. And he has an amazing story in what he's been able to accomplish recently and what he's working on with that. So, welcome, Kurt. Glad to have you back. Great to see you again.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. It's good to see you. It's always fun to be back on here. Yeah, I think we were one of the first, so that's awesome that we could be back on here. It's an honor, man.
Yeah, glad to have you back. So it is nice that we do get to see each other so often, even if it is online. You know, we were just talking with the mastermind group a couple hours ago. So that is a real blessing, not being in the same place physically, but getting to catch up regularly. So I wanted to have you on this time. We've you've been on the podcast a couple of times talking about real estate, man, and we could talk about that again.
Yeah, we could.
Two properties, 100% creative finance or seller finance. I'm like, that's a home run deal. So we could go down that route, but today we're focused on your recent race that you ran in July. And I mean, you have some, in the mastermind, we talk about trying to get to the next level, right? Get your business to the next level. Today was about legacy and generational wealth and, what that holistically is, what legacy we want to leave. And so, really the True Wealth brand is more holistic. It's about, how do we have a successful life and really have wealth holistically in all areas of our life, not just financially. So when I first heard you talking about your race and your kids there to support you and encourage you, I thought, man, that'd be a great story to share. So tell us a little bit about, this is a 70.3-mile race, right? That you
Yes.
ran in July, not too long ago.
Yep.
And so, off air, I was just trying to wrap my head around, what that is or what that would be familiar to me in. So what is a 70-mile race, or what exactly does that entail? What race did you run?
So this is a triathlon. They call it a half iron distance. They also call it long course in USA Triathlon. And so it is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike, and a 13.1 mile run, or a half marathon at the end. So total, it's going to take, someone that's fast, that's pretty fast, it's going to take 4.5 hours or less. And then it could go anywhere up to 7 hours for someone just, doing it for the first time or whatever. So it's a crazy race for sure.
Yeah, that's a very elite race. That's a high level event. So what was the race like? I mean, for very few people listening, I'm sure they've completed one. So what's it like to run a race like that or compete in one?
So it was the first time I'd ever done that distance. Just caveat, I'd never done anything that long in my life. I'd only run a half marathon one time before that, and that was while we were on vacation, like the November prior. So last year, November. I'd only ridden my bike 56 miles a couple of times. So I'm not the guy that's like, oh, I've run 10 marathons and I figured this would be no big deal. I was really nervous. Really nervous. There was a lot of planning that went into it. I've never done anything so long that required nutrition while you're competing. So I had to nail the nutrition because I found out you could do a thing called bonking. It's what they call it in our world. It's endurance athletes. It could be running or any endurance. They call it bonking, where basically your body just says, nope, you're done. Like, that's it. I don't care if the race is over or not. You're not going a step further. And so I was really nervous about it. And it didn't help that that morning was literally a torrential downpour. It was raining sideways all morning until I got to the run. So the swim so much didn't matter, other than I was freezing before I got on the water. I mean, I had a wetsuit on, it's sleeveless, and I'm literally shivering. And they said, okay, go. And when I got into the water, I'm like, oh, this is nice. I mean, it felt like, bath water. It was so warm. And then it was totally raining sideways during the bike. At one point, it pushed me off course, and I went into a ditch, during the bike, and it was just crazy experience. And I did it in 4 hours and 51 minutes is how long I ended up doing it. So I was out there for a while, but it was an amazing experience, actually. I know that sounds crazy, right? You're like, it sounds miserable, but it really wasn't. It was doing something that long, which I'd never done before. It required me to be completely present in the moment. All of a sudden, none of the bills mattered, none of my problems mattered, nothing in the whole world, nothing that we're dealing with, nothing mattered except like the road, one step in front of the other. Like, everything else went away. And I don't know that I've ever experienced that kind of like self-presence before. So that was one of the byproducts that I did not expect. That was kind of neat, actually.
That would be. I mean, it almost sounds like meditation,
Yeah, it kind of was. It really was. It was almost therapeutic, except that you're exerting so much energy, that you're still kind of suffering through it, but it wasn't relaxing by any stretch.
So one thing that I was really wondering about was when you're trying to step up to a race at that level and you've never completed that distance, like what was the voice saying in your head? I when I public speak, I don't get nervous public speaking anymore. I get excited and I'm ready to get in front of people. But the first time I stepped on a national stage, man, I had that voice was in my head, like, you're not worthy. That imposter syndrome, like, who are you to be on this stage? People aren't going to benefit from it. It's amazing how when you stretch yourself and try to accomplish something bigger than what you're used to, how that voice can, man, creep up in a hurry. So I was really curious in this instance, what was your experience?
I guess it would be the same. I mean, I think that's a great, because I like I said, I never done anything that long before. I was a sprinter in high school, and I had that feeling of I think there was so much preparation, probably more so than maybe needed to be. I over prepared in some ways, because I remember just telling my wife, like, I don't even know that I can do it. Like, I'm training hard. Like, I know that I've done the work. Like, just like you say, in speaking, you're prepared. That's not the issue, right? You're going to a national stage. It really shouldn't matter, right? You're just as prepared for that as you were for
preparation. Yeah.
Same. And so it was the same for me too. It was the same preparation, just longer. So I'd already been doing shorter triathlons. So I just had my training it changed. It was a little lower intensity. I had to train longer. So I put in a few more hours a week, nothing crazy. I wasn't training like 20 hours a week or anything nuts. But that voice was like, I hope you can finish. Like, I hope you can get through this, because I really didn't know. I thought I would I was worried that I would find my limit and not be able to push against it, that it would break me.
And
fortunately, it didn't.
Well, fortunately it didn't. Yeah. And there's no way to know that until you cross that threshold. So, that's
Totally.
really admirable. So what was your training like? What does it take to train for a race like that?
So, there's different levels, fortunately. like with triathlon, one of the things you and I were talking about, there's a shorter distance. It's called a sprint. It's it's what you swim 750, you bike 12.4, and then you run a 5K. And you can even go to a super sprint, which is half that distance. And then it just keeps going up from sprint to Olympic to half iron, which is 70.3, all the way up to what people know of the Ironman, which is the big 140.6 miles, takes anywhere from 8 to 16 hours, 8 if you're an elite, 10 to 12 if you're really good, but not elite. So the training, as far as, what I did was about, because I'm training for a nationals here coming up, and I think last week was my biggest week, and I put in, I think it was just shy of 14 hours of training last week, and that was my biggest week of like the year. Usually I'm right around 10 hours a week training. That doesn't mean, like, for somebody just coming into it, I didn't train 10 hours a week before. I just do that now because I'm having some measure of success, and I want to push against that. I want to get better. And so that, you just keep pushing the envelope just like anything else. That wasn't where I started, for crying out loud. I could barely run a mile when I started. So, seriously, I mean, I'm hyperventilating at the end of the mile, like, oh, I'm so, whatever. I just can't do this. But just like everybody that starts exercising after not doing anything for 12 years, which was in my case. So yeah, I mean, for somebody that was just starting out, they could train like 6 hours a week, and that would probably be more than enough to get them rolling.
Do you do running one day and biking the next, or do you try to do all three each training regimen, or how does that work?
I would love to do 3-a-days, but it's pretty rare that I do, just because I have a lot of other things going on. I have 6 children, so that requires some of my attention. I got to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
So like today, I ran this morning, and when we get off here, I'll actually have a bike this evening that I'll do. So it's a 2-a-day. I'll usually run 3 days, bike 4 days, or excuse me, swim 3 times, bike 4 times, and run 3 times in a week. And then I'll usually do a couple of strength training in there as well.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the part of doing 3 disciplines is you got to practice all 3. Whereas if you're just a runner, or just a cyclist, or just a swimmer, then you just focus on, and it makes it, the training is a little different. So when you're trying to do 3, you end up not doing any of them. Great. You try and do them all well.
And do you typically swim in a pool or lake, or what's that?
Yeah, usually I swim at the YMCA, but sometimes I'll jump into a lake just because if the swims start, this is what I tell anybody that's just wanting to do their first one, to definitely get in a lake and swim a little bit, because sometimes people feel claustrophobic when they get in the water because they can't see. Your first thing in the morning, the water's green, there's people all around you splashing, you're going to get bumped and elbowed and kicked, and that stuff just happens, kind of like a mosh pit in the water when you're starting. It can be, depending on the race. Not all races are set up like that, but some are. But when you get in the water for the first time, when you're swimming in open water, it's different because you got a sight. You don't have anything on the bottom of the pool to guide you. So you have to be able to look up in the water and see where you're going, and be able to put your face in the water and not worry about seeing anything because you can't see your hands, So I tell people that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing to get used to. If you can do that, swim 750 yards in open water without stopping, even if it's super duper slow, which was my first time, then you're fine. You can do triathlon. Because the biking and running part, you're on land. You can always stop and take a breather and walk. You'll be fine. It's the swim. It's the swim that gets people.
Okay, sure. So, I mean, for a lot of people, and myself included, I struggle with fitting exercise in. I do real well for periods. I do very poorly for periods, which I've shared with you before. And so, it's when I see you being very successful in it, you know, it's almost like I'll lift you up on a pedestal because that's what I struggle the most with, right? I'm like, man, how does he do that? That's amazing. So, you know, if you're working out 10 hours a week, you know, how do you incorporate that in, or more than 10, you know, now? How do you fit that in with family and work and everything else?
Yeah, well, one, I started really small. You know, there's because it is a struggle. Like, I still struggle. I still don't feel like doing workouts, just like everybody else. Um, but you know, starting out, honestly, starting out, I was, and I won't get into the story, but I got a hold of a Navy SEAL book that said how to train to meet the basic qualifications of Navy SEAL training. And literally, like, the first day was like, do 20 push-ups. And I'm like, I can do 20 push-ups. So I did 20 push-ups. And then the second day was like, do 20 push-ups and run an 800. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And so literally, I would do that like 4 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, and I would miss workouts because I hadn't developed the routine yet, and I couldn't, you know, and I would forget, and just like everybody. And eventually, it started to become habit, and it started to build until I could do the necessary push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups to meet the basic qualifications just to be invited to, you know, like the physical stuff, to be in the Navy SEALs, which, you know what I mean? So started super small, and now it's ingrained. It's a habit that now over 3 years, 3.5 years, I've just developed a habit where I look at my calendar the week leading up, and I know, you know, my workouts already pre-made for the week, so I don't have to think about it. I don't have to make them every day. They're pre-made. In fact, they're pre-made for a week, a month in advance. And so I just look at them and say, okay, well, like today, I have to get a run and a bike in. And I've made this non-negotiable. I have to get a run and a bike in. If I have to do that bike at 11 o'clock at night, I have to do it at 11 o'clock at night, which I rarely do, but I have. So I just got up early, and not that early. Fortunately, in real estate, I can be flexible with my schedule.
Yeah.
So I got up, and I was on the treadmill at 7. So not crazy early, you know. I was on the treadmill at 7, and then, like I said, I'll do the bike here probably about 6 o'clock this evening, you know, after my day's pretty much done. And yeah, I'll hang out with my kids this evening after that, or they'll come down, they'll sit with me. They love to watch while I'm doing my workout. I think they like to watch me suffer. So they come down and they watch, and they'll talk to me while I'm doing it. And, you know, so it's kind of a fun thing, especially my boys. They like to come down and, what's your workout today, Dad? You know,
Cool.
It's become kind of this family thing. Yeah.
Do you have do you typically fit your workout in before work, or evenings work better, or which one, where do you like it within your schedule?
I like evenings.
Okay.
I know that there's lots of people out there. I've heard gurus say you got to get up first thing in the morning and work out, and it gets those endorphins going, and it gives you energy for the day. And for me, it just wears me out. Like, I'm just tired all day when I do that. And so I'm like, why don't I do it in the evening when I can go to bed when I'm done? So I prefer evening, but I still do work out in the mornings, probably, I don't know, 3 days a week.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's good. Well, and I haven't tried in the evenings. I'd try after work because I like that end, like mentally clear my mind at the end of work. But that's also a very busy time of day a lot of times, especially with the kids in sports right now, the end of work and running to get them. And so the evening's a good slot.
Yeah, so, honestly, usually about 7 o'clock, seems like. 6 or 7 o'clock is when everything's pretty much wrapped up for the day. You know, as far as real estate stuff, my contractors are done. Nobody's working on properties at that point, so I'm not usually solving any problems that late, and the kids are home. So it might be during dinner. That's the only side thing. So if one of your core values is I always eat dinner with my family, then obviously you have to adjust that time. But, you know, for us, it's just, you know, we know that Dad for a couple days a week is going to be downstairs grinding it out while we're upstairs eating dinner, and that's just, it's just kind of how we roll now. It's not a huge deal. We try and eat as many meals together as we can, which is most, but we just make that adjustment.
All right. So, and you touched on it a little bit, that when you started, you were not in like peak physical shape and transition from one sport to the triathlon, that you were kind of starting at square one. So what was it that initiated that big change, and really why are you keep continuing with it? 3 years of continuing with that really solid regimen to the point where it's habit, and you're not only just content going with the regimen, but trying to compete at a national level. What is that motivation, or what inspired it?
So I've learned that there's two things that we really need in order to change our mindset about something, or change our paradigm, or the way we view something, including physical fitness or anything. And there may be others, but these two is what I've heard, and I really found to be true. Is one is repetition, right? We learn that the more we do something over and over again, the more it will become a habit. And the other thing is an emotional event. Generally, there's some kind of emotional event that happens to us, whether we look in the mirror and we're overweight and we say, "I've had it. That's enough. I'm sick of being overweight," and we have this emotional moment, and then we have a choice on whether we're going to take action on it or not, right? And then comes the repetition. The repetition, you just have to follow that, like, okay, I'm going to take action, and you just have to keep repeating it. And the more you repeat it, the more you change your view of yourself, because working out and exercising is super hard. It's inconvenient. And every time like, I respect anybody that is exercising or even trying to get in it, just, and then stopping it, because you're overcoming an obstacle every time you try. Every time you do an exercise, you're overcoming and you're flexing that obstacle overcoming muscle every single time, because your body hurts. Everything that's wrong with, like, your body hurts, you're tired mentally, like, it's early, you don't feel like doing it, you're going to be tired when it's like, why would I do this stupid thing, right? And so there has to be those things. And for me, it was an emotional event. And I'll get a little personal here, but January 2nd, 2018, I got a phone call. I hope would never get, but I got a phone call that my older brother died of a drug overdose. He was 46 years old. We were really close. And I didn't know how much that would rock me. And it was I'd never experienced that kind of knee buckling grief before, just that kind of where it would just hit me and I'd have to run upstairs and literally I would just drop to the floor because my whole body just ached from it. And I needed some way to deal with that grief. Like, I just needed some outlet for that. I was about 30 pounds heavier than I am now. I hadn't done anything. And I was watching, oddly enough, I was watching a YouTube video. I couldn't sleep, so I'm off watching YouTube videos. And I watched this documentary on Navy SEALs. And for some reason, that made me feel like such a wimp. And so I ordered this book that was like your guide to Navy SEAL training. And it started really small, where, you 20 push-ups on this day, and then you do 40 push-ups on this day, and you run a mile this day. And so I started to do that. And I found that when I did it, the harder the workouts were, the more healing that I experienced. And so Elizabeth, my wife, then asked me, she said, "Hey, I'm going to do a 5K. Will you do one with me?" So I did. Did terrible, but I did it. And as I'm at the post-race party, I'm sitting across the picnic table from this young gal who's talking about how excited she is to do her second triathlon. And as soon as she started talking about it, it was like every light switch in my body went on. I mean, full on. RPMs went to red. Like, everything in me was like, I'm getting back. I'm doing triathlon. Like, I'm doing it. And so I did. And so I started training again. And my first triathlon was completely terrible. I was 12th out of 16 in my age group. It was super slow, right? But I did it. and I love the challenge of it. And even now, I find that my hard workouts, and this is just me being transparent, and I know there's a lot of people that go through this, that have either siblings or parents or children that have, gone through drug experiences or drug overdose. I've encountered so many just telling the story. But even now, that was 2018, so 3.5 years later. During my hard workouts, the ones where I have to go into that dark place, they call it, which I actually think it's a light place. It's a place where I'm stripped down and it's just me. It's just me and God, because I don't know if I have what it takes to finish this workout. It's taking everything I've got. And it's in those moments when I'm completely stripped down and I'm in that place and there's nothing else in the world but that me and giving it everything I have, that it's not all the time, but there's times where afterwards I'm done with the workout and I'm just hunched over my handlebars and I'm just weeping. And it's not a weeping because I'm sad. It's like this wave of accomplishment and healing that takes place in that. And it's hard to explain, and I don't share that. I'm sharing it on your podcast, so all kinds of people hear it. But so I hope it benefits somebody and it inspires you, that you can find healing and exercise in these things, because those are the times that are most precious to me. Exercising, those are the ones I look forward to, because I don't plan them. They don't happen all the time, but when they do, it's like I can feel God very close to me in those moments. So that keeps me going. That keeps me driving, keeps me going. But now I'm hooked. So, I don't think about that all the time. Now I'm just hooked to the sport. I love to compete. And somebody once said that how you do anything is how you do everything. And that really stuck with me. And I'm like, I'm doing some things in my life well, and I'm doing some things in my life not so well. And so this is one thing that I'm like, okay, well, I've got other areas I need to work on, but I've got this one. I've got this one. I'm doing pretty well here. So that's kind of why I keep going. And if I quit, man, I've worked so hard. It's amazing how you work so hard to get fit, but man, if you stop for a month, it goes down fast. It's like, all that work I did. So it's like, I can't stop now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's really inspiring, because a traumatic event, someone could go the other way from that too, could pick up bad habits or fall off from their daily life because of that traumatic event. And, what it's the saying that it's not it's not what happens to us in life that defines us. It's how we react to it. So yeah, I think it's really inspiring how you reacted to that event. And it seems like a tribute to him and your relationship too, from the outside.
Definitely. It definitely is. He was definitely, if anybody who's had an older brother, he's 6 years older than me. And, he never let me win anything ever. So I can credit that competitive drive. I can thank him for that,
Right now I'm thinking of my oldest and how, watching him play basketball with my second oldest. I'm like, yeah, that's completely true.
That's right. Look out for the youngest, man. Look out for I'm telling you, it's the ones that get beat up on, and
their day will come. Watch out.
That's right.
So, and then you said you have here in a little over a week the national competition coming up, right?
Yep.
And how many people are competing in that?
There'll be hundreds of people there. In my age group, I don't know. I haven't seen the participant list. I'm guessing maybe 100 in my age group. And obviously these are 100 they had to qualify. So you do have to qualify to go. And so, everybody that shows up, it's like, it's game on, everybody's ready to compete. And it's fun. I mean, I'm 44 years old. It's awesome to be able to do this at my age. But the one thing a triathlon does well is it's all your age. So I'm only competing with people, with other men that are between 40 and 44. So we're all all dads. We all have kids. We all have jobs and things that we do. And, and here we are. So it's really, it's so much fun because none of us are doing this for a living. In fact, we're spending a lot of money to do it.
But that's exciting. Yeah, so we're definitely going to be cheering you on the 26th. So
man,
look forward to hearing how it goes.
Yeah, we'll let you know for sure. It'll be fun one way or another up in New York. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. You said your father and sons are going with you. I mean, that's exciting.
Yep, they're gonna be my pit crew.
Awesome. So in wrapping up kind of the conversation, if for someone, I think your story will be very inspiring to anybody listening. I don't know how it couldn't be. I mean, in me hearing it, we've talked so many times before, but even you sharing more now, I'm like, man, I got to do more. Good grief. How's he able to accomplish so much? So for somebody who's wanting to improve their fitness or start a new fitness schedule, what kind of tips would you give them?
Well, kind of what I said before, like there has to be some kind of emotional connection to your goal of what you want to achieve. At least there is for me. It's just speaking for myself, and hopefully that connects. We can imagine that goal. I mean, we can create that emotional experience, right? Or it can happen to us. So anger is a wonderful motivator. Just being angry at, man, I'm just angry at where I'm at right now and I want to get better. Or, somebody wants to look good for their spouse. I really want to look good for my spouse. So I'm going to, whatever it is, just it has to be some kind of emotional connection with it for it to stick, and then the repetition. And the biggest thing I can say is, there's lots of different, I know we joked about it because Grant Cardone says, if you can't get your workout in, do twice a day, and we're like, that just seems counterintuitive. I don't know. But so I started small. I'm not lying, like 20 push-ups, and then I'd run a mile, and I would do 3 or 4 days a week. And some days I would miss, and I would only do 2 days in a week. I'd be frustrated with myself, but I'd get back on it, but I never stopped. I just never, every week I would do something. And I think that was the key, is I had the emotional connection to the goal where I noticed, hey, when I do this, I feel this satisfaction of accomplishment, but also this feeling of healing for me. It was like there's an emotional connection to what I was doing. It really wasn't about cutting the 30 pounds. That was like a byproduct. For some reason, the 30 pounds just didn't drive me. It didn't get me going. Even it should have, right? We all think I'm carrying extra weight. That should really motivate me, but sometimes it doesn't, unless it makes us angry. If it makes you angry, then you got something there. But it didn't really make me angry. I'm like, but then start small and just keep doing something small, 2 to 3 days a week, and then you'll be able to build on it and you'll create that habit. I see this guy at the YMCA, he's the CFO of a big company, and literally 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. I don't go every day, but I know he's there Monday through Thursday. Same time, he shows up. He's just got the habit down. He's a robot in there. He doesn't talk to anyone. He puts his headphones in. He's a robot. He does the same workouts every morning, and then he's out the door at the same time every day. And I'm like, it's a good example. He's just kind of a metronome, just boom, boom, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, boom. But I'm sure he started small. I'm sure he started with just Mondays or just when whatever. So that would be my advice. Have an emotional event and just start small and just try and stick to it. Even if you miss, we all do. Keep at it.
Sure.
Don't judge yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's cool. Like, don't compare yourself to somebody else. That's huge. That's huge. Like, if somebody would have compared themselves to me 3 years ago, they'd be kicking my, like, it's totally different because I'm 30 pounds overweight and I could barely run a mile, but we can't compare ourselves to somebody who's in the process. It's already this many years down the road or whatever. I mean, it's hard. It's just hard for everybody. Like, it's all good, no judgment.
That's sharp. It's interesting hearing, your tips and even comments you said related to fitness and your high level of success there. And they really are similar things that we say in business, don't judge, compare yourself to others. The best way to be successful is just to get started and just not quit, right? It's similar concepts, principles, just applied
Yeah.
to fitness instead of business. So
Yeah.
that's
I would
sure.
say the one challenge though is in business you can hopefully see your income go up. When you're doing fitness, you don't necessarily see the results right away. And it
Mm,
takes a lot of time before you start seeing results, and you have to go through a lot to get to them. So it is hard. I'm not it, but the satisfaction and the fulfillment that comes from it, and that's what's worth it.
that's
So
awesome.
I hope I didn't
Well,
just turn everybody off right there. Like, they were like, oh, I was going to until you said that.
you don't see results, I'm out. That's it. No, I heard you. The results just come a little later. You just got to
That's right. That's
sit with it a little longer. So, well, I find your story inspiring and appreciate you coming on and sharing kind of that journey of how much has changed in the last 3 years and what you're striving for. And we'll definitely be cheering you on in the nationals. That's kind of amazing. I mean, in all honesty. So congratulations just on
Thanks, man.
qualifying and being there, being in the
Thank you.
crowd. For anybody who wants to kind of keep up well with that race and what you have going on, or maybe wants to reach out with a question or training tip or anything, is there a way they can do that?
Yeah, definitely. They can text me. So, I mean, I'll just give you my number. That's okay, right? Is it okay to
Yeah.
give me? Be careful. It's 740-255-3587. Feel free to text me. Don't call. My ringer's always off. Sorry, it's just the way I roll. The ringer's always off. So just text me, and I would love to connect any way that I can. Uh, and then there's actually an app that you could follow me if you wanted to, but you'll have to put it in the notes because I don't know what it is right offhand. But there's an app that you can actually go in, and if you want to follow certain athletes, you can to see how they're doing. But it's USA Triathlon event. That's what it is.
So actually on race day to see how you're doing or where you are on the field. That's
Yeah, you
cool.
can actually go to USA Triathlon events, and it's an app, it's a little yellow app, and you download obviously, and you can put in Kurt Phillips, and it's a 5 hour race. So you know you could check in periodically when you're sitting on the toilet or whatever. I wonder how Kurt's doing. And you say, oh, I see he just passed this, and he's in this, he's this place and going this fast, and whether I'm climbing or dropping, like you could check all that stuff.
Sure. Well, that's
Yeah,
cool.
pretty neat.
Well, for anybody wanting to keep track with Kurt or reach out to Kurt, I encourage you to do that. Kurt, I know him well. He is completely authentic and transparent and genuine. And so when he says, he would be glad to give tips, I know he would. So don't hesitate to reach
Definitely.
out to him. So, Kurt, again, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, and I know it'll be an inspiration to others. So,
Well,
thanks again.
thanks for having me on, Chad. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. See you.